Okay, on this episode of Hot Moves, we're going to examine 3 really interesting camera moves from the Expanse. We're working with a late arrival that's one of the most useful camera blocking techniques known to man. We're going to learn about shearing parallax, which is an awesome kind of parallax. And then we'll look at a master push done up against a wall, which makes no sense when you describe it, but it looks fantastic. This is Hot Moves. Okay, so this first technique is also what I think is one of the most useful camera blocking techniques out there, and it's beautifully executed here by director David Grossman. So what's happening here is that they're getting a broadcast about 2 ships that went inside the ring gates and disappeared.
All ships in the vicinity, this is an MCRN priority alert. We have determined that electromagnetic...
So this is a major plot beat coming up here when they hear that the Rocinante is actually inside the ring gate.
Shearing is on the other side in pursuit of the Rocinante and will apprehend. We strongly advise against anyone going through the ring until we have fully assessed the situation.
We're looking at how the camera move just keeps going.
Where is our chief engineer?
So this technique is called a late arrival, and the point is that we have somewhere that we need to ultimately go, so basically this ending frame right here, but then we take for absolutely ever to get there. And then what you get is this constant evolution. That it's building and building and building, and it just keeps building. So the way that you design a late arrival is really just that you have the ending framing and then you start from somewhere else and just take forever to get in there. In this case, the director starts over here, pulls behind an actor right here, and then he pulls into this shot. This just happens to be the same framing as the ending framing. That's not really a very important feature of this shot. The really important feature is that now the scene is still only at the beginning, and then he takes the entire rest of the scene to just make his way around the table, ignore the camera orientation. And the point is that this is where we want to end up, and we just take forever to get there. But the only thing that really matters in this shot is just getting to the ending framing. So let's try to cook up some alternates. So for example, we could track from, let's say, out here and just take the entire scene to get in here. Emotionally, that's basically the same shot, almost. Or we could do it from over here. Basically the same shot again. We'd make sure to drop some parallax in the foreground so we're tracking behind some things so that you can feel the movement. I personally think this one here would have worked well because he's with his back to us, and that means that it takes a while to see his reaction. And that would happen with the camera right about here. So for the last half of the move, we'd really want to see his reaction. So that would be a completely workable alternate version of the shot. So let's appreciate a couple of details in the shot here. And the first is that the parallax is really nice. In particular, it's this cable coming down here. That might just have been part of the production design, but if it wasn't, that's the kind of stuff that we should be asking for. There should actually be even more of that. But just look at this here. That is so nice. And there should almost be a cable, one more cable here. Or just anything. I mean, it can be almost nothing. Just anything that produces a couple of pixels that are moving would have been fine. Another thing that's nice about this parallax is that if you notice, he's pinned in the frame. So he's the middle of the shot and the whole shot is rotating around him. And that means that this one here, so he's standing still, but the cable over here is moving to the left and everything in the background is moving to the right. And that creates like this tearing feeling, which I can't put a word to what the emotion is, but I really like it. And then just notice he's right in the middle and all the parallax is tearing around him. That's really nice. And if there was one more cable coming down here, that would happen one more time. And then finally, there's a nice thing. Since they're probably shooting this on a stabilizer, at the end, they're repurposing it for a close push on him. So he's asking, where's the engineer? And there's a little close push in there. That is also super nice. So director David Grossman is super duper nailing it on this shot here. And the director continues his victory lap in the very next scene. Tell me what you notice in this shot.
Checking up on me?
Yeah, that too.
So hopefully you'll notice the same thing as me, that the perspective shift on the wall over here is awesome. And this is something that I've been calling shearing parallax, that our eyes track the lines that are in the shot, and then there are a whole bunch of techniques around maximizing the feeling of movement. So you know foreground parallax and background parallax because that was what we just worked with in the last shot. But shearing parallax is when you can see the whole surface. So instead, the parallax shows us kind of a displacement or shearing or distortion or whatever you want to call it. And here I'm moving the bottom points in Illustrator. And you can see that the lines or the parts of the lines that are closer to the camera, they're going to be whooshing by faster. And that's what's happening on the wall, that the lines in the wall are whooshing faster past the camera out front. And this only works because of the pattern in the wall, because if you did this on a white wall, it wouldn't work. Basically, if we stop on a good frame here, it's only because these lines are physically visible in the texture of the wall that there is something for the eyes to track. If we did this on a white wall or just some kind of random texture, you wouldn't get the same very distinct feeling of shearing parallax. There's a whole free video on the Hollywood Camera Work website about this called grid theory, and you should check that out. And moving on, later in the scene, he has a very clever master shot that I don't think I've ever seen done this way, that he does a master push up against the wall. And let's just play it.
I'm glad, that,
So it's really short, and let me just put this into context because the vast majority of the scene is just cutting back and forth between some variation of over-the-shoulder dialogue. And then, so he has the master shot from before that he opens with and never comes back to, and then like after a minute or so, he cuts to this shot here. And so you know master pushes because we've seen them a million times, that it's just out in the middle and we push in. And normally there's some kind of foreground, like let me draw, this is my attempt at a flower. And as you're pushing in, you're kind of getting the foreground parallax, the sense that you're moving at all. You're getting that from the thing that you put in there. Well, he doesn't have that, but instead he put the camera up against the wall. And I think that is brilliant because then we're getting the depth parallax basically from the texture on the wall moving past us. But anyway, those were a couple of fun shots from The Expanse. These were from Season 3, Episode 9, and I'll see you soon.